Every year Apple releases a new device, and this year is no different. Here we have the rose gold iPhone 6s Plus, and let's go ahead and check and see what's different this time around. So the first thing that I noticed after picking up the device is how heavy it is. The second thing is how fast the Touch ID is. So Apple has updated the Touch ID, and it's fast. Now cosmetically they haven't changed much. It looks just like the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus. The only difference that you'll notice is if you have a rose gold, you can tell, but a different color. And the other is that it doesn't have the FCC markers on the back and it has the S badge on the back. Otherwise, you can't tell the difference between the two devices. But don't let the looks fool you. Apple has made plenty of changes to this model this year. First off is that the display is even different. Amongst the 3D Touch, it also includes an dual ion exchange, so it's supposed to be much stronger than last year's. And when we look at the body construction, this time around Apple has used 7000 series aluminum. Unlike last year, this one will not bend. But like every iPhone S, the biggest changes are to the internal components, and that stays true to this year's iPhone. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the new features and options. Now I've been using the device for about 2 weeks, and one thing I can say, this thing is fast. With the A9 processor, I don't see any lag or any stuttering when I switch from applications. When I try to launch the control center, it pops up right away and has no issues. Now we are running iOS 9.0.2, which has been optimized for higher performance, and you can see that the Apple has definitely improved year over year. Now the A9 is a dual-core processor, but it's running much faster than last year. And it's also including 2 gigs of RAM, and now built in is the M9 coprocessor, which means you can use Hey Siri without it having to be plugged into the power, and it uses less battery power. So the next big thing that Apple has changed is the camera. This time around it's a 12 megapixel camera, and it also has a new feature called Live Photo. And the way Live Photo works, it takes about a second before the picture and a second after the picture, and it's kind of like a small GIF, and it's activated using 3D Touch. So you press harder and you can see the movement. It's nice if you have kids, pets, or just want to catch a moment, something different. Now with the upgraded 12 megapixel camera, you can also shoot 4K videos. And also on the iPhone 6s Plus, you get optical image stabilization. Now this is something that many iPhone users have been waiting for a pretty long time, and they're finally able to use it. Now one of the biggest surprises was, and anticipation for, was that Apple's going to release Force Touch. Well, Apple did release a pressure sensitive touchscreen, but they named it 3D Touch, and it works a little bit differently. So unlike Force Touch, you press hard once and you get an option. With 3D Touch, it's a little bit different. In a way, you can press a little bit harder, you get a peek view, and then you press harder, and it'll pop into place. Now I do find myself using this when I don't want to go to a full website, or if I want to read some content real quick. Sometimes I don't want to open up the whole website. So it works, and it works fast. So with the 3D Touch, Apple has also introduced the Taptic Engine, which is pretty cool because it comes from the Apple Watch and the new MacBooks. It has more of a natural feel. So when you use 3D Touch, it's kind of like being tapped. So you get a specific kind of feedback. So it's not like the vibrate motor on the old device. The vibrations feel more consistent. And the device doesn't rattle like the previous devices did and other devices that use the old vibrate motors. Now in the beginning using 3D Touch, it was different. So I found myself not integrating it as much into my daily use. But after about a day or two, I started using it more and more, especially with Safari. I like to preview websites when I visit them, so I like the peek and pop. So I used it more and more frequently. Now I'm using it on other applications, the camera applications, and I'm using it also on mail. I'm not saying that the tasks are completed any faster, it just makes it more convenient, not having to click around as much as I used to have to do before. Now opening up web links using 3D Touch and moving around The device handles all these tasks fairly well. The A9 processor is able to handle the workload, and the 2 gigs of RAM keeps the information saved. So I was surprised of how many apps and how many web links you can run at the same time without running out of memory. And iOS has always been good at handling that. Now this year, the device is a little bit thicker, a little bit taller, and a little bit wider. But the 7000 series aluminum also feels a little bit better in your hand. It's not as slippery as last year's iPhone. It's still slippery, but not as much. And it still has the protruding camera in the back. I wish we could have kind of gone away from that. Now, the one thing that I have noticed is that the camera app definitely feels more fluid year over year. When they originally changed the design of how the application looks, and switching between video and photo was a little inconsistent, but now it feels way more fluid and more consistent overall. Now, you do have other options. You can choose 4K video, you can also do 1080p at 60 frames per second, and that's nice. But if you have a 16 gig iPhone, not as much. The other part that they changed is now that they offer a 5 megapixel camera in the front, which is great for taking selfies, and they also have Retina Flash, which is something new, but it does work. So Apple calls this iPhone the best iPhone yet, which is true, and this is the first time that an S model has had so many changes. So we have a faster processor with a integrated M9 core processor. We have 3D touch display built with dual ion exchange for stronger glass, and we have the 7000 series aluminum unibody. There is also the 12 megapixel camera that now shoots 4K, and the 5 megapixel front facing camera. And we also have the updated Touch ID, which is so fast that sometimes you might miss your notifications. So sometimes the best thing is to kind of click it on the side or hit the home button before taking it out of your pocket. It also has faster Wi-Fi with now support for MIMO. And as always, the LTE bands have been updated, so it also has faster LTE. The device does come in 16, 64, and 128 gigabyte storage, and I wish Apple would have gone away with the 16, especially after including 4K video and live photos, as this takes up a lot of storage, and 16 gigabyte users will find themselves having to manage the storage more frequently and moving pictures and videos over to iPhoto and iCloud. Now, the other thing that I would like to see is 3D Touch utilized for Control Center. I would like the option to be able to select Wi-Fi and manage my Wi-Fi connections from that spot. The same thing as Bluetooth. So I think it's something that's going to come out later with iOS 10 or maybe even later iterations of the operating system. But I wish it was a little bit earlier. I'm also waiting for more applications to adapt to 3D Touch. As I'm using it now more frequently, it'll be nice to have it in more of my frequent day-to-day use applications. Yeah, it's nice using it on Safari, but sometimes I would like to use it on Google Chrome. And I do see other applications utilizing 3D Touch. In the last 2 weeks that I had it, there are a couple applications that have updated with the support. But it feels like it's going to take a little bit of time for other developers to code with 3D Touch support. And we might not see it until iPhone 7 to completely utilize those features. The other thing that I would like to see is to be able to change the resolution in the camera app. Instead of now you have to go into settings and then you have to go to photos and camera and change the resolution you want to shoot in. But it would be nice to actually be able to do that in the app itself. Many users can always list a couple of changes because they take information that Android has and they want to add it to the iPhone. But we all know Apple works a little bit differently. So those are the changes that I would like to see. Hopefully we can see them soon and not have to wait till iOS 10. Now the big question is it worth upgrading? Well, it all depends on what your options are. Many users are now on the upgrade plan, which means you're paying for your device monthly, and every 12 months you're able to upgrade if you trade your device in. You just have to pay a down payment. So if you have that option, why not? But if you are in a contract for 2 years, then you might want to hold out unless 4K video, 3D touch, are very important to you. If those features are important to you and you have a 16 gig model, then you might want to upgrade and get the 64 gig. Don't get the 16 again.